So, have you ever tried to change a habit, maybe a New Year's resolution, and it just fizzled out? Well, what if the problem wasn't you, but your system? Today, we're going to dive into James Clear's game-changing book, Atomic Habits, and figure out how these tiny, almost invisible changes can lead to absolutely life-altering results. And really, this one idea, it's the heart of the entire book. It's not about these massive, heroic efforts that burn you out in a week. No, it's all about the quiet power of just showing up every single day and making these tiny, almost unnoticeable improvements. But to really, truly grasp this philosophy, you have to understand the author's own story. And it's a journey that began not with some flash of inspiration, but with an absolute catastrophe. Can you even imagine, in his sophomore year of high school, a loose baseball bat just flew through the air and struck James Clear directly between the eyes. I mean, the impact shattered his skull and really his entire world along with it. This injury was no joke. It was life-threatening. The swelling in his brain was so severe that doctors had to place him in a medically induced coma. He had seizures, serious vision problems. It was just a long, painful road back. And that dream of his, playing professional baseball, it seemed completely, totally out of reach. And when you look at this timeline, you see it wasn't some overnight Hollywood-style comeback. Not even close. It was a slow, gradual climb. A year after the injury, he was cut from the team. I mean, talk about a humiliating setback. But step by step, he started to rebuild his life by focusing on these tiny, controllable habits, like getting good sleep every night and just keeping his room tidy. These were the little foundations that, 6 years later, led him to become an academic All-American. Incredible. So this whole personal journey, this trial by fire, it led Clear to his core insight, the surprisingly powerful math behind getting just 1% better every single day. Okay, just look at this graph for a second. It shows you the stark reality. If you get just 1% worse each day for a year, you basically end up with, well, almost nothing. But if you improve by just 1%, look at that bar on the right. You become nearly 38 times better. It's the exact same compounding principle that grows wealth in the stock market, but it's applied to your personal habits. And listen, this isn't just a theory. The British cycling team went from being pretty mediocre to completely dominating their sport by using this exact idea. Their coach, Dave Brailsford, he was obsessed with what he called the aggregation of marginal gains. They didn't just improve the obvious stuff. No, they improved everything by 1%. From the riders' pillows to painting the inside of the team truck white, just so they could spot tiny bits of dust on the bikes. It sounds crazy, right? But these hundreds of tiny gains added up to Olympic gold medals and Tour de France victories. This brings up something that's, well, it's absolutely crucial. Patience. For a long, long time, it might feel like your small efforts aren't making any difference at all. But think about that stonecutter. You're building up pressure with every single swing. That 100th tap might feel the exact same as the first one, but it's the 101st that finally splits the rock in two. So the big question is, how do you actually stick with these small changes long enough to see those amazing results? Well, Clear argues that the most profound shift isn't in what you do, but in who you believe you are. He makes this really powerful distinction. A goal is a target, right? Like, I want to run a marathon, but a system is the process that leads to the results, like, I will never miss a workout. If you only focus on the goal, what happens after you achieve it? A lot of times your motivation just collapses. But if you fall in love with the system, the results, they just take care of themselves. Okay. This is a perfect example of that mental shift. When you say you're trying to quit, it implies you're still fighting your old identity, that it's a struggle. But saying, I'm not a smoker, that signals a fundamental change in who you are. The behavior then just naturally follows that new identity. See the difference? It's huge. And that right there is the key. You don't just run, you become a runner. You don't just write, you become a writer. Every single time you perform that habit, you are literally casting a vote for that new identity. The motivation comes from inside you because the action is just reinforcing who you are. All right, so that's the philosophy. Now, let's get to the practical stuff, the toolkit. Clear calls it the 4 laws of behavior change. This is his simple 4-step framework for engineering any habit you want. It basically breaks down the entire process into 4 simple levers you can pull to make good habits practically inevitable and bad habits almost impossible. Now, what's so powerful about this framework is that each law can be flipped. It can be inverted to work in reverse. So to build a good habit, you make the cue obvious. To break a bad one, you make it invisible. You want to stop mindlessly checking your phone? Put it in another room. You want to start flossing? Put the floss right next to your toothbrush. Suddenly, you become the architect of your own environment, designing it for success instead of just relying on willpower alone. Of all the practical advice in this book, this next one might just be the most powerful, especially for anyone who struggles with procrastination or, just getting started. The idea here is simple. Master the art of showing up. You can't improve a habit that doesn't even exist. So, the initial goal isn't to run a marathon, it's just to master the first 2 minutes of the process. Here's exactly how it works in practice. You scale down your ambition to something so easy, so ridiculously simple that you can't say no. I mean, anyone can read one page, right? Anyone can put on the running shoes. This just removes all the friction and makes starting the habit almost effortless. And then the momentum builds from there. And hey, don't think this is just some cute little trick. It gets real results. One reader wrote to James Clear about how he lost over 100 pounds. And how did he start? He made a rule to go to the gym every single day. But, get this, he wasn't allowed to stay for more than 5 minutes. Eventually, just showing up became totally automatic, and he started thinking, well, I'm here anyway. So I want you to think about it for a second. Right now, what's one thing you want to do that you could scale down to a 2-minute version? The power isn't in those 2 minutes, it's in becoming the kind of person who always starts. And that brings us right back around to the most important idea in the entire book. Habits aren't just about what you achieve, they're about who you become. Every tiny choice you make, from reading one page to putting on your running shoes, it's a vote. It's a vote for the person you want to be. So the real question is, who are you voting for?